I know you realize that this video is really long. If you don't have that much time on your hands, just look at the description because I have a timeline of this video so you can click on what you want me to talk about. And when you have the time, try to check out the whole video if you can, and that'll be great. So this ultimate trick tip is for the frontside and backside 180 because you guys forced me to do it and I'm a huge pushover, so I did it. One trick you really gotta know for the frontside and backside 180 is the ollie. You gotta be really good with your ollies. Like in 10 tries, you should be able to perform at least 6 to 8 solid ollies. And what I mean by a solid ollie is you should be able to get your back truck like about 4 to 6 inches off the ground and also be able to level out your board so that you land with both trucks on the ground. And those two things are extremely important. You need to be able to get your back truck a good height off the ground and also be able to level out your board. You should probably be able to do something like this. Now, if your ollies aren't that great, I would highly recommend going to my ultimate ollie trick tip and making sure that your technique lines up with mine, or at least somewhat. So please, try to be honest with yourself. Are your ollies good, or do they still need some work? Because I feel like I'll get some guy with some really poor ollies come to me being like, I don't know why this is not working, this 180 is not happening. And I'll try to give them advice thinking that their ollies are good because I mentioned in the video that your ollies should be at least 4 or 5 inches high and you should be able to level them out, and they're not actually doing that. They don't know that yet. And that's why my advice won't work for them, because I think they know good ollies, but they don't. So if you think you're having some trouble, just go to my ultimate ollie trick tip. I'll leave a link somewhere. And you can just take a look at that, brush up on your ollies, and then get back to this trick when you think you're ready for this. And another thing you should be able to do is be able to ride switch pretty comfortably. Because when you do your 180, you're going to be landing switch, and you're going to go backwards. So keep that in mind. Try to be comfortable riding switch. Like maybe spend about a half an hour just pushing around in your opposite stance and just try to get a feel of just being in switch. And you really need to be comfortable with skating in general, because I see some people on YouTube who need help with their 180s, and what happens is once they're in their stance, they're already like falling over. They're like leaning random directions, their arms are flailing. And if you are in your 180 stance and you're trying to regain your balance, just being in your 180 stance, just stop what you're doing, because that should not happen at all. And if that ever happens to you, just keep skating, try to be comfortable with the board. Don't try to jump the gun and try to learn as many tricks as you can, like Pokemon. And I think one thing that could help you get more comfortable with 180s is when your board is moving, try doing body varials on it. So that's pretty much all you need to know beforehand. So the first trick I'm going to be teaching is the frontside 180 because I feel like people would have an easier time with frontside 180s as opposed to backside 180s. When you do your frontside 180s, you see everything in front of you, as opposed to the backside 180s where everything is behind you and you really don't see where you're going. So I'm thinking you'll have an easier time going frontside as opposed to backside. So let's get started with the frontside 180. I typed and printed out this whole book report on how to do 180s. I hope this video gets a Nobel Prize. Probably not. So this is just the technical part of the 180, just to understand what's going on and the mechanics involved in the 180. To start with the frontside 180, you can do this rolling or stationary, whatever you wish. Just make sure that the end result of all of your practice is a rolling 180. What you want to do is have your front foot in the middle of the board or near your front bolts. If you have your front foot in the middle of the board, your frontside 180s will be much higher, but the downside to that is you won't have that much control over the trick. If you have your front foot near the top bolts, you would have a better time controlling the trick, but the problem is you won't have as much height. What I mean by poor board control is when you do the 180, your feet barely stay with the board and they have a tendency to like land near the board. And what I mean by good board control is when you do your frontside 180, your feet just stay with the board the whole time and there should be like no problems with what your feet are doing and you land perfectly on the board. That's good board control. I think if you have your front foot like right here, this will be the best for a beginner. It's between halfway and like right near the bolts. Just have it like in the middle of that. And with your back foot, I like to have it here or here. I kind of alternate between them. It really doesn't matter. The reason why I prefer to have my back foot right here as opposed to right here is because when I do my 180 and I start it up, my back foot has a tendency to go off the board like this. See, this is a problem right here that my back foot's off the board, so when I land, I'm gonna be towing the trick. So what I do is I like to have my back foot here so that when I do the frontside 180, my back foot doesn't really tow the trick. It kind of moves forward, but I get a good land. So that's why I kind of prefer to have my back foot more here as opposed to here. But you should just experiment on foot placement and see what actually works for you as opposed to what I do. Like try to have your front foot here, 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 maybe have your back foot here, maybe over here. Maybe this is like the best foot positioning for you. Just try it out and see if you like it, because if it doesn't work for me, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. Just, try it out. Just, experiment with what you like. So now we're gonna get into our 180 stance, you know, whatever works best for you. My preference is something like this. So I'm gonna get into that stance. And when you're in your 180 stance, everything feels a lot like an ollie, like you're over the board and everything. But the only thing different is, you know that I'm gonna be going front side. So my board is gonna be moving like this. So in order to get my board to spin like that, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be twisting both of my arms and my upper body. And I'm gonna be going like this. So what you're gonna be doing is you're gonna be winding both of your arms, and as you wind like this, you're gonna notice that your upper body is also gonna wind up too. And this is the only thing that's gonna be twisted. Your legs stay the same, your head stays forward. Everything feels exactly like an ollie, except maybe your back foot is in a little different foot positioning, and both of your arms and your upper body are twisted. Everything stays the same. See how my head, legs, everything stays the same, except for my arms and upper body. So here's just a little demonstration. Let's say I want to do a fast spin on flat ground. Now if I go something like this, now that's just stupid because I didn't use my arms at all to spin. Now normal people would take both of their arms and their upper body and twist it so that when they go this direction, they have a lot of force to make them spin really fast. Now just another little demonstration. If this is your jump on flat ground, this is your ollie, right? This is your ollie with the board. If you want to do a regular spin on flat ground, you go like this, right? Now if you want to do a spin on the board, want to pop it, right? So you do something like that. This is exactly what I'm teaching you. Now I'm gonna need to go back a little bit so that you see the full picture. So what you're gonna be doing is you're gonna wind up, and once your knees start bending, that's when you unwind. So you do something like this, like that. So without the board, it's gonna look like this. I'm gonna wind up, I'm gonna unwind when I bend my legs. So I'm gonna be something like this. And right here, I'm ready to pop the board because I'm pretty much in my ollie stance, but I'm gonna have this extra force that's making me go this direction. So this is what you want. You want to be able to be unwounded when you reach your ollie stance, if you get what I mean. So I'm going to demonstrate it one more time. I'm going to wind up, and I'm going to unwind and bend my legs at the same time. So I go something like this. And this right here is the point where I pop my ollie, and then I follow through with the whole trick. Now I realize there's going to be a lot of people who are going to go to my slow motion videos and realize that I don't really pop the board in the position that I tell you. Like you'll kind of notice that when I do my frontside 180s, I kind of pop the board around here-ish, where I'm kind of like almost facing the nose, as opposed to what I said, which was pop down when you reach here. But this is just what's going on through my head. I try to pop the board when I reach my ollie stance right here. This is just what's going on through my head. I try to aim for this. Just going around and then popping right here and following through with all the force I gave myself. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, how far should I wind up my arms and upper body, and how fast should I unwind them to get the trick? The answer to both of those questions is to wind up where you're comfortable and unwind at a nice speed that's comfortable. You want to be comfortable with how you wind up and how you unwind. You don't want to kill yourself over it. It should be, comfortable for you. Now that you have wound up and unwounded, this is when you pop the board. When you do frontside 180s, your board has a tendency to do something like this. So in order to compensate for the board moving over there, I have to do my 180s like this. So I have to jump backward like 1 or 2 feet. If you want to do backside 180s, your board has a tendency to rotate like this. So in order to compensate for that, I have to jump forward a little bit, like this. When you do your frontside 180s, you're not going to do this and jump where you started from. What you need to do is jump backwards and do something like this. For backside, it's pretty much the same thing, except you wind up in the opposite direction and you jump forwards, like this. So you're going to be winding up and then bending down and unwinding at the same time. And right around here, you're going to be popping when your upper body is around where you're facing forwards. And like I said, you want to have your feet to land somewhere around here so the board is able to do the 180. The last part of this trick is just a simple ollie, except that you're rotating. And the reason why we're rotating is because we wound up and we unwounded, so it really wants to turn, and our feet really want to land right here. And as you start spinning, all your board wants to do is just a simple ollie. That's all it does. The only thing different is that your whole body just wants to go this way. Your body just wants to rotate, and your board wants to follow you. And how it's going to follow is it's going to do an ollie, and it's just going to follow your feet around. Like that. Like I said, this part is exactly like the ollie, because frontside and backside 180s are ollies, but with just more stuff on top of it. And just like the ollie, we're going to be popping the board down. Our front foot is going to drag up the board, just like the ollie. We're going to be leveling out, and we're going to be landing switch. Just like that. This is why you need to be good with switch, because we're going to be landing switch here. And that's pretty much how you would land the frontside 180. So when you do your frontside or backside 180, please ollie, like do your actual ollie. Make sure that you stay over the board the whole time like an ollie. Make sure you drag up the board and level out just like an ollie. Because what I see happening a lot are people who pop the board, and when they go for dragging up the board, their front foot just floats away, and it looks stupid because their front foot doesn't do anything involved in this trick, and the board just flies away. You never want to do that. You want to make sure that your front foot drags entirely up the board and levels it out all the time. So if you find that your front foot comes off the board, which it should never come off the board, then the problem is that you are not doing your ollies correctly. So first, make sure that your regular ollies are solid, they're good, and they're nice. And then take a look at your frontside 180s and make sure that you drag all the way up the board and don't have your front foot leave the board and fly away. You want to have your front foot just stay in contact with the board throughout the whole entire frontside 180. When you land your first ever successful frontside or backside 180, you're going to think to yourself, hey, that felt exactly like an ollie, except I was just spinning around. And as it should, because if you look down at your feet when you're doing this trick, you're going to see that you're just doing a regular ollie, except you're just turning around, and that's basically it. And before I get to the backside 180, one thing I should mention is for both frontside and backside 180s, make sure everything is in one fluid motion. And what I mean by that is you're not going to be stopping when you do all of your motions. Like, you know that I'm going to be winding up and then unwinding and popping down once my chest faces forward, and then I go through with the 180 and land here. So in order to land the frontside 180 fluidly, what you must do in order to land the trick properly is you want to go something like this. Here's an example of a non-fluid motion that will hurt you when you do this trick, which you should never do. Now if I just stop right here, then all the force I gave myself is now non-existent. It's pretty much like I've never twisted. So what you need to do is just go through with the turn. So here's just a little example. I got this rock and I'm going to throw it. So what a normal person would do to throw this rock is take their arm and pull back. Now in a sense, this pulling back motion is the same thing as me twisting my upper body before I do my 180. So let's throw this rock in a non-fluid motion. I take my arm back, I throw it, and then I let go. And as you see, that was a pretty stupid throw. And that's what's going to happen with frontside 180s if you don't do everything fluidly and you do something like this, where you wind up your body and unwind and stop, well, all your force is lost, just like that. And if you want to go through with it, you're just going to do something stupid like this. Much like how throwing that rock was pretty stupid because I threw it when my hand wasn't really going anywhere. You want to be fluid with your motions. Never stop. Just keep moving. Whatever you do, just keep going. So for backside 180s, it's pretty much the same thing. There's only a few minor differences, and I'll just tell you what they are. Other than that, it's pretty much what I said for the frontside 180. Now, one main difference between my frontside and backside 180 is, you know that for my frontside 180s, I like to have my foot like here or here. But for my backside 180s, I like to have my foot like more on the tail, like this. Like I like to have my back foot covered like most of the tail. Like, you know, this is the edge of the tail for me since I'm regular, and so this is the edge of my back foot. I like to line up the edge of my back foot with the edge of the tail. That's how I kind of think of it, like this. And I like to have my toes kind of reach the end of the board, kind of like this. And for my front foot, I like to have it, you know, like I said for my frontside 180s, I like to have it in the middle or up here, somewhere in this general area. Like anywhere around here is fine for me. I just choose whatever I want. It really doesn't matter. And like how I said for my frontside 180s, if you want more control of the trick, also known as, you know, you're not toeing or heeling the board when you come for your landing, have your front foot towards the front bolts. And if you want more height for the frontside 180, you would have your front foot in the middle of the board. Well, it's exactly like the backside 180. This is more control. This is for more height. Now, if I was learning the frontside or backside 180, and this is the middle of the board, and this is the front bolts, well, I'd like to have my front foot kind of between them, like somewhere right here. Now keep in mind, please experiment on foot placement. Maybe you prefer to have your front foot here. Maybe you prefer to have your front foot here. Maybe you like to have your back foot here or here or here. So just try to experiment on what foot placement works best for you. It's getting really dark. So if you want to learn backside 180s, go back to the part of the video where I talk about the frontside 180 and look at all of that, and I'll just tell you the two key differences between a backside 180 and a frontside 180. Now, one main difference between the frontside and backside 180s is for backside, you're going to be rotating the other way. So if you're moving this direction, you're going to be rotating your backside 180s like this. So in order to go the opposite direction, you need to twist your arms in the opposite direction, like this. So you're going to unwind, you're going to pop down, do everything exactly like a frontside 180, except you're spinning the other direction. Now, as opposed to frontside 180s, for backside 180s, you want to have your feet go forward about a foot or two. So you get something like this. Your goal is to get your feet to land over here, but you must do that while you ollie. So just like how I said for my frontside 180, twist, pop down when you reach here, and then follow through. Make sure it's in one fluid motion. You want to go something like this. So just like the frontside 180, you pop down, your front foot drags up the board. You notice that your board is rotating because of the force you gave yourself from twisting your arms and upper body, going like this to right here. Your body really wants to spin, and your board and body want to spin because you told your brain that you want your feet to land right over here. So that is also why your board and body want to spin around. So like how I said before, pop the board down, have your front foot drag up the board, never have it leave the board, have it go up the whole board. So we get something like this, it goes up, and then it starts to level out the board, so you get something like this, and then just continue the rotation, land, and then you right away switch. So as you can see, the backside 180 is a lot like the frontside 180. The only real difference is that your back foot may be in a different foot positioning, and you're winding up the opposite direction, and you jump forwards for backside 180s, like this. Well, one big issue with backside 180s, especially while moving, people have a tendency to slip out and fall forwards, like on their stomach. Like here's just a little example. You'll be moving, and you pop your backside 180s, and you would land like here, and you would slip out and fall. And the reason why you would land and slip out and fall like this is because you're being lazy. The reason why that happens is because when you do your 180, your weight is like this, and then when you start it, your weight gradually just shifts and leans to the nose. And that's why you would slip out. And to fix that, you have to make sure that you treat the backside 180 just like an ollie. And by that is, you always have your weight over the whole board the whole time. You never shift your weight towards the nose. I seriously just used up 16 gigs just by talking, so I'm using a different camera, so bear with me on this. So now you should have a pretty good understanding of the mechanics of the frontside and backside 180, and you should be able to pretty much visualize what's going on in your head, and I'll just explain what you need to know to put this all into practice. Now, just like how I said before, frontside and backside 180s are like ollies, but with an extra step on top of it. So remember, treat it like an ollie. You want to be over the board the whole time. You want to be popping the board and dragging up and leveling out the board. You really need to know how to drag up the board and level it out. This is extremely important. And you should also be comfortable with riding switch, like how I said before. Usually with your first frontside or backside 180, you do your 180, and then you kind of just pivot out once you land it and go back to regular. But when you go for the real thing, you want to land it and right away switch. And just like when I said before, if this is your jump on flat ground, this is your ollie, right? If this is your spin on flat ground, then this is your 180 on the board. So if you want to go frontside, you twist your arms and upper body in the opposite direction you want to go in. Everything is exactly like an ollie, except both your arms are twisted, your upper body is twisted, and your back foot may be in a different spot. But other than that, everything feels exactly like an ollie. I'm over the board, my head is straight, my legs are straight, my stomach faces forward. The only thing twisted is my upper body and my arms. Now that you have wound up, you're going to unwind and bend your legs at the same time. So you get something like this. And you pop down pretty much when you reach your ollie stance. So another demonstration, I unwind, bend my legs at the same time, and I pop down when I reach my ollie stance. For backside 180s, it's pretty much the same thing, except they're twisted in the opposite direction, like this. So as you can see, I pop pretty much when I reach my ollie stance, and then I go through with the whole motion. Also make sure that when you do your frontside or backside 180s, that you do it all in one fluid motion, like this. So as you can see, I did not stop when I was doing my motions. I just went through the whole entire thing in one motion. Like, I know I'm accidentally confusing a few of you when I do this, and I just stop and pop right here, but really I'm just showing you where you pop. In actuality, you're just gonna go through the whole thing like this. If that makes any sense. So in essence, this is pretty much your regular flat ground spin, except you pop when your legs extend. Like, I know I said that a lot, but I just want to drill that into your head. The only minor difference is for frontside, you're gonna be jumping back, like this, and for backside, you're going to be jumping forwards, like this. So remember to do your pop while you do your spin. So remember, when you do your frontside and backside 180s, you pop the board, you drag up the board, your front foot does not float away, it's an ollie. You go up the board and you level out your board. You have to do this. So you're going to do your frontside 180s like this, pop the board, drag up the board, level it out, just keep going with the board. Land switch. For backside 180s, it's the same thing. You pop the board, you drag up, you level out, you're still rotating around, and then you land, switch. Like, I'm dead serious. Your feet do a fantastic job keeping the board under you. Like, if I jerk my back foot like this, my board will follow me. But this will only happen if your feet stay in contact with the board the whole entire time. If your feet leave the board, you pretty much screwed up. Now, I know people are going to go to my slow motion video and be like, hey, your back foot was hovering over the board when you're doing your frontside and backside 180s. but it's in slow motion, so what am I gonna do? There's some little ticks in there, but in real speed, you would notice that your feet just stay with the board the whole time. Just please do your ollie. Like seriously, just do your regular ollie when you do this trick. And like what I said, for backside 180s, you have a tendency to slip out and fall on your stomach. And the reason why that happens is your weight shifts towards the nose. And when this happens and you land it, you're just gonna slip out. So to fix that, what you need to do is stay over the board the whole time, just like a regular ollie. Everything regarding weight and just staying over the board and everything is exactly like an ollie. Now, one thing I really want to mention for this trick tip is everything that I've mentioned for the frontside and backside 180, there is a lot of room for error for this trick. You could pretty much fudge a good amount of what I said, and you can still probably land a clean frontside or backside 180. Like if you unwind and you pop here, you can still pretty much get your frontside or backside 180. Another example is if you unwind pretty slowly, you still have a chance to land a trick. Like there is a lot of wiggle room when it comes to this. I'm just showing you the ideal way to do the frontside and backside 180. So don't try to get hooked up on the specific stuff. Like you don't be like, you gotta twist your arms at like 40 degrees and then you unwind at 50 radians per second. You don't want to be too specific. You just want to have a broad idea of what you're gonna be doing. The only one thing that I will be a Nazi about is when you do your frontside or backside 180s, that your ollie is inside the frontside and backside 180. So here is just a few extra tips. So these tips are for both frontside and backside 180s, so just keep that in mind. So this tip is in the case that you do your ollies properly and really good, like your feet stay with the board the whole time and everything. What you could do is just force your feet to do the 180 and not really care about what the board does, because if you do have good ollies, your board will end up just sticking to your feet the whole time. And if you force your feet to do the 180 without caring about the board, your board would most likely stay under you and go with the 180. Also try to experiment with how far and how fast you want to unwind your arms and upper body, and experiment with like foot placement. So just try to experiment with a bunch of stuff and see what works best for you. Now here's a really good way to practice your frontside or backside 180. What you want to do is do everything like how I said my trick tip, but what you're going to do is when you're practicing, do like 90-degree frontside 180s or do 90-degree backside 180s and try to just land them and just jump off. And once you can do like 90-degree ollies, try to do like 110, then do like maybe like 130 degrees, and just like build yourself up to the full 180. I think this would be a really good start if you want to practice 180s. Just start by doing a little bit of rotation and then slowly get yourself around and land them perfectly each time you do them. Like if I could land it perfectly 90 degrees, I'm ready to go for a little bit more rotation, like this. And if I try to go for like this and I go for like a little bit more than 90 degrees and I don't land on the board or land it properly, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to try to go back to the 90 degrees and land those properly again, and then work my way up again. And if you want your frontside or backside 180s to be higher, set your feet up more like an ollie when you do the trick. And maybe you're like me, I really can't get flat ground 180s that high. I have to be doing them over stuff in order to get them high. And in the case that you are familiar with frontside and backside pop shoves, when you do your frontside 180, you can kind of just push the board a little bit like a frontside pop shove to help you get around. For backside 180s, it's pretty much the same thing. You push the board much like a backside pop shove, and you just follow through with that. Those are just little things that can help you. It's not like a big deal. And if you see yourself slipping out a lot or the board doesn't feel like it's staying under you, make sure you treat the 180 just like an ollie. You stay over the board the whole time. There should be no reason why you lean back or lean forward. You really want to have the board in your line of sight when you're looking down. Like if you are looking down while you're doing your 180 and you notice that your board is like right here in your line of sight, the board is like off to the side, or maybe it's off to this side, that just means that you're not staying over the board. Remember, treat the whole thing like an ollie. Stay over the board the whole entire time. If you find yourself doing moving 180s, either frontside or backside, and you do everything perfectly, everything is nice, you land perfectly, do everything right, but the problem is you land stationary. And the reason why you would land stationary like this is I bet all of my money that you are doing this trick very, very slowly. I would recommend doing 2 or 3 good pushes before you start the trick. I guarantee you, if you go fast, you will never land a stationary trick ever again. So yeah, that's pretty much the frontside and backside 180. Oh my god, that was a lot. If you have any problems or any questions, don't be afraid to leave a comment in the comment box or send me a message, and I'll try to get back to you on it. But other than that, good luck. Oh jeez. I'm gonna go to bed and cry.